I'm like, who the hell put this profunda stent? It was it's 3 years. It's more than 3 years out, and it looks perfect. I was shocked, and I always laugh about it. Oh, thanks. Hopefully my case is not as exciting. So there's a lady that I was taking care of. She's 65. She was sent to me for a thoracic aneurysm. She actually had two separate areas where she had aneurysm. One was 5 centimeter, and then she had a saccular aneurysm, a little bit more distal, which is 5.7 centimeters. So the indication for treatment was actually the 5.7 saccular, but since we're going to be there, we decided to go ahead and treat the entire thoracic aorta. She had a small aortic aneurysm also. We weren't going to do anything about that. I mean, physical exam, all that stuff is all listed here. She's not morbidly obese, relatively regular. Distal pulses, I couldn't really feel her distal pulses or femoral pulses were fine. She had all the imaging done, everything, good to go. So this was our plan. We're going to place a Gore thoracic device. We're going to put in a 40 millimeter proximally with a 20 French sheath, and then distally she needed a 45 millimeter graft, so that's probably the biggest size sheath that you have to put in. So 24 French sheath for that. So here's just the diagnostic. I just took a diagnostic angiogram, just wanted to get an idea of what was going on. Right side's a little tortuous, left side some calcium, but that was the site that we had chosen for our access. I did the common femoral, the common femoral vessel looked good on the left, so just percutaneous access. Get the first device in, looks great. Got the 20 French sheath in, no problem. A little bit difficulty getting in the 24 French sheath, but she wasn't really tall, so we didn't really have to advance the sheath that far. It kept getting stuck at the aortic bifurcation, so I was like, let's just go ahead and just create a little endoconduit there. So we had to put in kissing stents. There was some calcium there, and I think as we started to pass the device kept getting stuck at that location. There was a little bit disease distally too, so what I did is I went ahead and extended that with a vibe on her. Internal on that side was not open, so I'm pretty happy. I'm like, okay, great. We have an endoconduit. It's a big catheter. Let's go ahead and kind of move back, get back into the case and get the device done and get out of here. And the anesthesiologist goes, "What did you just do?" And in my mind, I go, I'm just like, because when you're manipulating a sheath and the anesthesiologist says that, you're like, holy crap. So, it's not a great picture, but massive perforation of the vessel. I mean, right at the edge of where my Vibon was, and I still had some space to go down. So the blood pressure is 40. He's like, listen, I'm going to give you 30 seconds before I start CPR. She's starting to breathe down, get all the blood, all that stuff in the room. Luckily we're kind of prepared. I'm like, great, the Vibons are in the room. Just give me a Vibon. I'm just going to go ahead and deploy it. So that's what I did. I just deployed the Vibon pretty close to my access site, stable. He's like, okay, great, it looks good. Give her a couple of units of blood. Blood pressure comes back up. I'm like, okay, great, let's go ahead and finish the case. 10 seconds later, he goes, same thing, what'd you do? And I'm like, what do you mean what I do? And so somehow she's bleeding through the stents. They were ballooned, they were appropriately sized, and I just couldn't figure out where she was essentially bleeding from. And this time she's just crashing. Blood pressure 20, 30, again, same thing. He's like, dude, you have literally 30 seconds to get this controlled. I just put a balloon up and, was able to tampen out that off, and essentially here, you kind of don't have many options. I mean, I can't keep ballooning. The lady's like crashing. I need to do something definitive. So did a retroperitoneal incision, just grabbed the graft, clamped it, and had to do an iliofemoral bypass for her. So I was kind of lucky. It was a very hairy situation. There's the extravasation. We ended up doing an iliofemoral bypass, and you can see I did a nice 10 millimeter Dacron graft because I still need to fix her aneurysm, so I need some sort of access to come back into. So I did 10 millimeter Dacron down to her common femoral artery, and she actually did well. I mean, she was intubated for a day or so, and then she just had a little bit of physical therapy and kind of recovery, some pulmonary issues, but she's gone back home, and which I'm going to bring her back now and cut down on that conduit, or cut down on that graft, and then deliver the remaining device. I don't know why it bled through the stents, whether they disconnected or not. You know, the problem was that I had to go back in so quickly. Just literally, I opened the retroperitoneum, almost a bucket of blood fell on the floor. I mean, the radiology guy was like, holy crap, what happened, you know? And so I just grabbed the artery right away. So even with just grabbing the artery, who knows? I mean, I couldn't tell what had gone wrong. You know, by the time I grabbed it, I may have already manipulated the stents or pulled. I mean, you could see the stent was just hanging there. It was just in the breeze in the retroperitoneum because the whole iliac was probably torn off, or the distal external iliac. So people who do, you know, aortic cases, or, you know, obviously have to be careful about these access complications. It's pretty rare. I mean, it's the first access complication that I've had in about 13, 14 years. So it's I think a little bit of poor planning, maybe. You know, I think that probably not the best device for this patient, because it's just, you know, it's probably the largest device we have. I think would have, yeah. I mean, with two stents there, I mean, with multiple stents overlapping pretty significantly and ballooned, you know, I don't know if I probably wouldn't have had time to figure out. Like, and this is an elective patient that walks in for an aneurysm should not be dying on the table. So I was like, I cannot let this person die. And so that's it. Let's just clamp it and forget figuring out how it happened, where it happened. Just fix it. I'm lucky I got out of this, because, you know, a lot of times when you have a bad rupture like that, I mean, it's, you know, luckily, you know, we have wire access and balloons and all that stuff. But if you're not on the right and have a great anesthesiologist, great cardiac anesthesiologist, and this situation could have gone completely south too. And we've all seen that happen too. So I think Mohsin wanted to ask me a question. He's an aortic expert. Correct. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. The issue was that yeah. Correct. Yeah, it was rapid. It was a rapid exsanguination. I mean, its hemodynamically was really unsafe. But you're right. The graft selection, you know, unfortunately, this wasn't the case that I had planned. With someone else's case that I was kind of doing for them, but I was one doing it. So, you know, for me, ultimately, it is my responsibility. But it was sized with that, and I was always like, wow, it's like a big graft to be using in this. But when we bring her back, we're using a cook. No, obviously, because I'm not going to put, I mean, although I could put in a 24 French through here now, but I'm not going to take another chance.